Hello, everybody. This is Smiles Lewis, and you are tuned into another edition of the weekly Anomaly-NOW News Roundup show of the 501c3 Anomaly Archives Scientific Anomaly Institute, headquartered right here in Austin, Texas. No, this is not live. It is Memorex. I am pre-recording this weekly edition in advance of, this week's Thanksgiving Turkey Day fun stuff, familial adventures. Anywho, this is going to be a very short broadcast, but we just wanted to give folks a heads up and some links to information about something interesting that happened this weekend that you may or may not be aware of. Let's check this out. So, of course, you can find out more about us over at anomalyarchives.org, our website. You can go to our Flipboard where you can find all kinds of news links for past news articles and roundup. There's tons of fun stuff there. Not going to get to any of this tonight, folks, but what we are going to cover in this edition is of pretty much some big significance. Most people think. Garry Nolan, no stranger to the UFO scene, has organized a conference over at Stanford, where, of course, he is known for. And folks are likening it to a academic conference, but in fact, it's actually seemingly more of a press conference, an extended 2-day press conference with lectures of an academic bent, but also a policy bent. But we'll get to that in just a second. But if folks aren't aware, there is this other very significant event that was held many, many years ago. And there's a massive tome that you can find and read called Alien Discussions, the Proceedings of the Abduction Study Conference held at MIT, Cambridge, Massachusetts. This was a phenomenal, fantastic event, very significant academic event, all focused on not so much UFOs, UAP, but people's experiences of what they consider to be contact with the entities behind the phenomena. You might want to check that out. Meanwhile, over at thesolfoundation.org is this announcement that came out some time ago. The Nolan Laboratory Department of Pathology and the Stanford School of Medicine present the Sol Foundation Initiative for UAP Research and Policy. Again, it's a initiative for research and policy, not so much an academic conference, though. Again, there were academic type presentations, but as this says here, this Stanford School of Medicine sponsored symposium will address these and other pressing questions by bringing together leading voices on UAP from academia, government, and industry. Much more than an academic conference, this first of its kind meeting will see its participants propose government policies, programs of research and funding, and investment strategies by which institutional, economic, and cultural resources adequate to the magnitude of the phenomena can be marshaled and organized. And there are the organizers, of course, Dr. Garry Nolan, Dr. Peter Skafish, and these confirmed speakers, Jonathan Burt, Eric Davis, Timothy Gaudet, several people whose names I'm not going to try to pronounce, Avi Loeb, Alyssa Kean, on and on and on. This was invitation only, though there was a way to apply for attendance there. There's been some news coverage of this. The event organizers did not want people tweeting about this, taking photographs, that sort of thing. It's very tightly controlled, invitation only, though apparently there were quite a few people there that you might not have expected to be there. But they're going to be supposedly posting videos of the lectures very soon. They probably are trying to get all those permissions in a row. But of course, folks have been sharing information about it. And most of what we're going to share with you today is culled from some insider accounts of people we know, as well as tweets and this video coverage. We'll post links to some of this, but of course, UFO Joe Murgia, was one of the first to post a synopsis after part of day one, Sol Conference day one, Puthoff backs crash retrievals in Grush. And then there's these other videos from Cosmic Road YouTube channel, Post Disclosure World YouTube channel, as well as Vetted YouTube channel. Also, The Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford, among others. And we'll post links to some of these in the show notes. But yeah, so preceding all of this was a report from Ross Coulthart saying that there is a supposed replacement for the head of AARO, with Sean Kirkpatrick announcing his retirement and leaving. And that person is one of the people on bill for this event. But most of what we're going to be showing you really quickly here are synopses that were tweets from the Juan. That's twitter.com/PlanetHunter56, PlanetHunter56, aka the Juan, who describes himself as a researcher of anomalous intersections, ufology, folklore, religion, Forteana, physics, and mathematics. And you can find information at his twitter.com/PlanetHunter56 page. But yes, he goes into quite a few details about the different presentations, also some very kind of being there in the thick of it, descriptions of people's seating arrangements, just noting who was sitting next to who, that sort of thing. One of these early ones at Sol today, during his specific talk, Dr. Garry Nolan discussed some very specific laboratory findings regarding anomalous materials found at the Ubatuba and Socorro sites. He has previously discussed some of this during interviews. And I'm just going to go through these really quickly here. There's a bit about Diana Pasulka's presentation. Right now, I'm in the midst of reading her new book, Encounters. Highly recommend it. Almost done with it. It's going to be fun finishing that read up over the week for this Thanksgiving week. At Sol Day, number one, Peter Skafish said the following right before he introduced Leslie Kean and Hal Puthoff for their discussion, quote, "We're in the middle of disclosure. Not the beginning, but the middle. Let that sink in." This Peter fellow is one of the other organizers with Garry Nolan. Meanwhile, yes, this guy, Karl Nell. Karl Nell's getting a lot of attention. He's the one that is the rumored replacement for Sean Kirkpatrick, though people who were trying to get that information out of him at the event were more or less told by him, don't believe everything you see, hear, or read. During Karl Nell's presentation at Sol, he also went over a list of positive and negative reasons as to why disclosing the existence of NHA now. There is a picture of this admiral. Very interesting fellow. Everybody seems. Oh yeah. One more thing. In another video, these 40 witnesses that Dave Grush allegedly has brought to the fore to talk about their insider information on crash retrieval programs. This Karl Nell is thought to be possibly one of those. So that's kind of interesting. I'll be curious to hear more about that. It doesn't seem likely that somebody from within that program would be made to be the head of the AARO program, but who knows? Again, moving right along, more from the Juan. This one, some very interesting statements and phrases strewn throughout Karl Nell's slides presented today. Talking about a prime directive, like from Star Trek. The Schumer UAP legislation is an example of Pasulka's emergent phenomena. We want to be engineering isotopes instead of raw materials. Quote, "I will not comment on AARO or on Kirkpatrick." Controlled disclosure in order to prevent catastrophic disclosure. He also used some acronyms that most of us are not familiar with. TUO, technology of unknown origin. TNO, temporary non-attributed object. And apparently he used photos of the Calvine UFO in the slide when discussing UAPs, but also used photos of the Chinese spy balloon when discussing TNOs. Yeah, so there was a very interesting and contentious moment that I've heard a few people talk about, including my friend, an insider who was there and who said they really wanted to stand up and applaud this. But the WAN reports, later on, I'll post some notes on the Karl Nell extremely detailed discussions on the origins of the Schumer UAP legislation and what comes next. However, one of the highlights from it was Jacques Vallée acting like an audience member and asking Nell some questions after Nell's talk, and Vallée spoke out with visible emotion. And apparently he went well over his time. I believe this was one other reporter from one of the videos that you can watch who was there says that, yes, the timekeepers kept saying you're out of time, but he kept at it. And it's clear he felt very strongly about what he had to say to Karl Nell about the Schumer UAP legislation and some of his concerns. So Vallée paraphrasing, or the Juan paraphrasing Vallée, quote, superficially, there's nothing better for disclosure than the proposed Schumer UAP legislation. However, scientists and researchers of the phenomenon, like everyone in the room will reject it as an inappropriate definition of the phenomenon itself. You don't want to lock yourself into the definitions that it stipulates. Vallée then said that he had special concerns with the following: confiscation and the notion of eminent domain, i.e. the government taking possession of alleged metamaterials not already in the hands of the USG. Religious artifacts not addressed in Schumer legislation. Abductions not addressed in Schumer legislation. Referenced Whitley Strieber, who was sitting nearby. Nell's responses to Vallée: definitions are evolving with time and with a specific purpose. We are zeroing in on a singular aspect of phenomenon for now so that the USG can get a handle on it. Eminent domain is too complex, but we can talk offline. Again, and apparently, so what I've also heard is that Vallée, before he even spoke, he was one of the scheduled speakers. Before he even spoke, he got a standing ovation from the audience. And something else, one of my friends who is an attendee there told me is that one of the things he was pleasantly surprised by was, here are all these government types, these intelligence types, these political types, these corporate types, these academic types of people attending and speaking. But he said there were a lot of experiencers among the large 100, 200, 300 audience members. I find that very fascinating and interesting. Moving right along. So yeah, here is day one, some key points that the Juan notes about everybody from Dr. Avi Loeb. Dr. Kenneth Knuth said that we should not only be watching our oceans for UAP activity, but also our potential planetary oceans within our own solar system, like Europa implied. Garry Nolan discussing his analysis of some 1964 Socorro UFO fragments given to him by Jacques Vallée, who was in the audience and was also one of the speakers. Vallée discussed the 7 levels of UAP strangeness and how the key to deciphering the phenomenon lies in levels 5, 6, and 7. Dr. Diana Pasulka discussed the myth of Prometheus. Hal Puthoff, in his conversation with Leslie Kean, said that we can take 2 recent UFO insider statements to the bank, quote unquote. Number 1, that Jim Lakatsky's statement about a UFO that the government retrieved and that we went inside it. And 2, all of Grush's claims. Lou Elizondo was not in attendance. And lastly, Dr. Nolan talked about the Stardust Repository and an initiative to standardize the testing of anomalous material under a federation of labs organized under a public umbrella and funded by gifts and grants, and to make the data freely available. Real quickly, if I could hold this up on my phone, my friend who was in attendance did have one thing about the best quote from the conference so far. I think this was as of day one. Vallée, who was talking about high number of unreported cases due to their complete strangeness and witness hesitance to come forward, he stated that this was where he is going to, quote, spend my time in the future. And anybody who knows Vallée knows that that's really not unusual for him. But again, it's like he's doubling down on the high strangeness factors, which really have gotten lost because, of course, so much of this is focusing on UFO, UAP sightings, instrumentation, military witnesses and pilots and encounters, as opposed to, as Vallée was lamenting, the experiencers. Okay, real quickly, trying to wrap up here. Yes, the Juan reporting. As a ufology nerd through and through, I just just seeing these seating combos at SOL firsthand was itself a truly unique experience. Again, and just a list of people who were sitting next to who and who was talking to who, which, again, I'll provide the links to these, and there's more than I'm showing you. Christopher Mellon notes about him. Of course, he is one of the biggest heavy hitters amongst this crowd, of course, coming at this publicly through the previously significant Tom DeLonge to the Stars Academy and moving on to now these other areas. Another very interesting interaction that took place early on at day 2 of SOL, Russell Targ, one of the fathers of remote viewing, acting as an audience member and asking Tim Gallaudet, when is the USG going to release clearer photos of UFOs, and him talking about having previously given UFO photos when he was doing RV stuff to the CIA, I believe, or DOD. Again, more with Karl Nell, saying we need another Manhattan Project as a framework for studying UAP derived technology. This is a recurring theme. Everybody, this cadre of folks really are pushing the connection to the Atomic Energy Commission, the secrecy structure wrapped around nuclear energy or any radiating energy type things. Some very interesting stuff coming out about all of this. And as much as there seems to be a surface level reality to this idea of nukes and nuclear facilities being targets of UFO sightings, it's really hard to say, and I think there's some good arguments that that's not, in fact, accurate, but it's part of the narrative, folks, that's being pushed right now. And these were some key takeaways from David Grush's legal counsel, Charles McCullough's fireside chat with Peter Skafish that took place on day 2. Yes, lots of details there, but again, I'll just refer you to the links in the show notes. And lastly, Grush was not able to be there in person, but apparently did a Zoom presentation or talk, very brief, I think, at the end, and had some, as some have said to me, very new agey sounding comments. So, well, I'm going to leave it at that, but again, we'll post the links to all this. Again, this is all because of the Sol Foundation, which you can find out more about at thesolfoundation.org, organized by Garry Nolan. That's GarryNolan. Of course, very famous research scientist of much respect and repute. And though, of course, he does have his detractors, and as often is the case, perhaps for good reason. But that's pretty much it for now. I would just say thank you for watching, for listening. You can, of course, go to anomalyarchives.org and find all the back catalog of these Anomaly Now episodes, which were started back in 2020. We went for about a year, took off most of 2022, and then started back up again this January in 2023. 2023 is the 20th anniversary of our nonprofit status, our organization having been founded back in 2003 by myself and my cohorts. But we'll probably be back next week for a live edition, and thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, smash the bell, all that stuff. And subscribe to the podcast however you like to get them, whether it's audio only or the video only, or the video audio versions. Okay. Thanks, folks. Night.